Upon starting Arcane's Prey, I expected Dishonored in space, but the former turned out to be 10 times more terrifying. Among the earliest to simplest enemies are mimics, agile and arachnoid facehuggers that transform into innocuous objects. Because fuck you, enjoy standing your ground with nothing beyond a wrench and the shit in your pants. While Prey differs from Dishonored in key ways, Morgan Yu moves like other Arcane protagonists in that he can climb on stuff more conventional FPS games wouldn't let players climb on. Even without Corvo's superhuman agility that develops early in Dishonored, there are plenty of pipes and shelves Morgan can use to work his way up to the ceiling. Clearly, Dishonored's dependable and familiar mechanics remain, but the context has changed everything. Whereas one uses stealth in Dishonored to be a predator, this game is called Prey. From the eerie narrative and dark atmosphere, to a comprehensive resource management system and a diverse suite of potent abilities, Prey is a memorable recipe for an optimal survival horror experience. With Prey, the renowned creators of the Dishonored franchise present a hard sci-fi take on our relationship with extraterrestrials, and I had a lot of fun. Where to start without spoilers? Aboard a lunar station, the Transstar Corporation studies how humans can harness the abilities of Typhons, ancient, dangerous beings who wield powerful forces against the uncomfortably thin fabric of reality. After losing his memory, Morgan Yu must either team up with himself from the past to destroy the Talos 1 station in the interest of containing the alien threat of the Typhons, or team up with his brother to subdue the beasts and continue learning how to harness their powers. Either option will take many hours of shitting your pants. As you assist survivors across the overrun station, they'll weigh in on how to make the most of the station-wide outbreak of Typhons. In classic Arcane fashion, you reserve the right to abandon NPCs to fate, but they'll help you if you help them, playing a pivotal role in whether Morgan goes down with the station. Finally, I concede that Prey isn't primarily a horror game. Dead Space, Outlast, and many others are a lot worse, but if you're going to pick it up, you should emotionally prepare yourself for coffee mugs that turn into spiders. What I love most about the Talos 1 is that not only does it function well in terms of game design, but the arrangement of its regions makes practical sense. In spite of outer space's inherent directionlessness, the station does have a central elevator, which invites a great deal of verticality into the game, as elevators often do. Life support functions exist at the bottom of the station. Water, air, power, anything a spacefarer would rather not think about. The station's middle area, where the narrative starts, contains all general workspaces, from labs and offices to lounges and eating areas. At the top of the station, the Transstar Corporation has gone out of the way to build an arboretum, which was indeed arboreal as fuck. Through this wooded area, players can access the crew's recreational spaces and living quarters, as well as the bridge. You can even skip alien-infested areas by using an airlock to the exterior and using another airlock to return to the interior. So the entire game cleverly avoids the need for fast traveling, and unlike Dishonored, you can revisit completed areas if you miss something. At first, Prey didn't strike me as a stealth game. The enemies had clear awareness states, clearer than those in Dishonored if you ask me, but there were no rewards for pacifism or remaining undetected. Staying stealthy at the beginning of the first playthrough is difficult enough because you're not a badass assassin with a sword. You're just some guy with a wrench shitting his pants because of all the coffee mugs turning into giant spiders. Though there are no rewards for remaining undetected, you'll die immediately if the aliens see you, so you eventually learn that staying stealthy will make you more effective by virtue of being your only option. To be clear, I play pretty much everything on the hardest difficulty. First I played on hard, then I played on nightmare, which I think might be an unlockable difficulty. Anyway, I can't speak for normal mode, but I'm sure being reckless is much easier, just so you know. I usually hike up the difficulty for a more authentic and comprehensive experience. It's not just because I have something to prove. At first, stealth is difficult, especially in a nerve-wracking survival horror game, but it's a joke how much easier the game gets. As massive as the ability tree might seem, only 2 playthroughs are necessary to max it out. Long story short, stealth isn't a bonus. Stealth is the bare minimum. After all, the game is called Prey. Beyond stealth, enemies allow for craftiness and open combat by exhibiting different elemental vulnerabilities. Let's say you're dealing with a Typhon who's vulnerable to fire. You can pick up a gaseous canister and chuck it at him, or you can invest in the fire trap skill. Unloading ammo from the same weapon for all enemies is always the least effective means of combat. Technical skill takes a backseat in this game. Without special vulnerabilities, the enemies remain diverse enough. Essentially, there are 8 primary archetypes. Between spiders that turn into coffee mugs and 7 others, that's plenty. Beside mimics, The humanoid phantoms are most common, but there are also some amorphous hovering enemies, radioactive homing missile turds, yellow blobs that induce fear, invisible aliens, good old humans, and droids, who are very annoying. As for the Nightmare, all you need to know is that he is very big and hunting you. Defeating a Nightmare requires a great deal of patience and grenades. In a game that is both harshly technical and creatively atmospheric, this high-quality suite of meticulously designed enemies is critical to Prey's success. In a world where most enemies require better marksmanship, Prey's enemies require more than marksmanship. You dispatch phantom after phantom by being faster, more creative, and more observant than an artificial behavior ever could. No survival game is complete without comprehensive resource management. You can earn a comfortable amount of inventory space if you invest in the human skill for increasing it, but during much of the first playthrough, you'll have to decide what to abandon. Ammo is sparse, and limiting open combat is the only meaningful way to conserve any. Furthermore, all weapons are semi-automatic, so every shot counts, unless you bump into the Q-beam, which is a fat middle finger to every alien on the station, including the Nightmares. While deciding what to keep is necessary, it isn't that difficult. You need weapons, a few key consumables, and refined materials. You can feed all valuables into a recycling machine to extract any of 4 key resources that will primarily accumulate in your inventory over the course of the entire game. You can take these resources to a fabricator that lets you build everything from ammo and weapons to health packs and upgrade kits. The 4 distilled resources are essentially the game's currency. To quote my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie, Prey's resource management is hard but fair. Side objectives largely mirror those in the Dishonored series. Expect trivial moral quandaries and safe combinations. The key difference between Prey and predecessors is that Prey offers a much more open world. Many might regard the Talos One as a hub world, a central area with peripheral levels, but you can access the entire station. All previously accessible spaces remain accessible until the end, so you needn't worry much about any doors closing across the web of interdependent activities. Not only are tasks easy to complete by virtue of remaining completable, but they're more diverse in the sense that you can pick up a side quest that returns you to an earlier area. Side quests needn't pertain to a single space on the station. Side quests are dumb. I want to do the main quest first, and I'll deal with the others later. Good fucking luck. Enjoy spamming your toothpick weapons at trans coffee mugs. As all games should be, side quests arm you appropriately for the rest of the main game. This is often the purpose of side quests beyond completion, but they're real game changers in Prey. The hardest difficulty is so hard that I almost have an inclination to say that side objectives are far from optional. Investing in them is hard, but skipping them is harder. In contrast to character levels, earning skill points is achievable through the fabrication or discovery of neuromods, special consumables that dot the Talos One's darkest reaches. You'll have to find a lot of them, but you can also trade in your resources at a recycling machine to obtain extra. Within the ability tree, there are 2 categories of abilities. Mostly passive human abilities include benefits like health or damage bonuses, agility, and sneaking, but you can also emulate the powers of the Typhons, summoning fire or lightning, throwing balls at people like Goku, and even turning into coffee mugs like those fucking spiders. From a technical perspective, the Typhon abilities can't pull their own weight without a decent foundation of human abilities. As you graduate to further playthroughs, your only incentives to expand into the Typhon tree are twofold. The human tree will be complete, and you don't keep weapon upgrades for later playthroughs. I know, it sucks. I certainly would have wanted to know from the start, so I'm telling you now. The coolest mechanic regarding abilities is that the more you invest in Typhon abilities, the more likely turrets and droids are to mistake you for a Typhon. It reminds me of Tendency in Demon Souls, a karmic mechanic whose benefits fluctuate in response to how good or bad you behave toward NPCs and so on. How many times can you play through Prey before it stops being funny? 2.5 in my experience. Note that the first playthrough is the main challenge. Even if you raise the difficulty on further playthroughs, nothing will be as difficult as the initial grind. I went from hard to Nightmare, and Nightmare was easier with my more expansive arsenal of abilities. Neuromods are the only progression to carry over between playthroughs, so if you're out of those, there's no reason to Groundhog Day yourself into the coming decades when the game takes place. Morgan Yu was born in 2005, isn't that so fucked up? Anyway, by the time I stopped playing, aliens were crouching in closets to hide from me. There's also DLC, but Prey Mooncrash is a godforsaken roguelike. I don't have the endurance for any of those. The promotional footage for the content shows some guy jumping around and effortlessly blasting enemies away like it's Doom Eternal. Meanwhile, if you're any good and you're indulging in the hardest difficulty, you can't play that way. Mooncrash isn't my cup of tea, but if you love Prey for some reason and want to make it your whole life, by all means partake. Prey is in the top 10 for many people. While I don't think it's especially spectacular, completing the base game several times was a unique experience that nudged me outside my comfort zone. It abandons mastery in favor of survival, optional activities in favor of mandatory activities, and inventory space in favor of no inventory space. A dynamic and sprawling choose-your-own-adventure game, Prey presents a thrilling space-age narrative reminiscent of sci-fi's golden age from the 70s through 80s. It covers ground that an action-packed shooter never could. Believe me, grinding iron in Minecraft for 100 hours is fun, but Prey distinguishes itself by being an immersive and atmospheric experience. If you're like me such that Dishonored and horror are two of your favorite things, Prey is required shit. Doing everything there is to do takes around 50 hours. When you're done, you can fuck right off back to Stardew Valley and sell cranberries for the rest of your life. Prey is a net positive, showing the newest generation of gamers that gaming is a perfect marriage between interesting experiences and demanding challenges.